tragedy that was no accident. What really happened on the night of February 28th, 2023, in Tempi? Was it just human error, or the result of years of negligence, corruption, and cover-ups? 2 years later, the victims' families never stopped searching for the truth, and what they uncovered shook the entire nation. The night of February 28th, 2023 would never be forgotten by Maria and Costas. The phone rang sharply in the middle of the night, shattering the silence of their home. Maria's hands trembled as she reached for it, her heart already sensing that something was wrong. On the other end of the line, a voice shook with fear and sorrow, the kind of voice that delivers news no parent should ever have to hear. There was an accident, the train from Thessaloniki to Athens. Their son, Nikos, only 22 years old, was on that train. He was coming back to Athens after a few days with his university friends in Thessaloniki. The next few hours dragged painfully as Maria and Kostas called hospitals, police stations, and emergency hotlines. No one could confirm anything. By dawn, the silence broke with the final blow. Nikos was gone. In the chaotic hours after the crash, the government moved quickly to control the narrative. A railway station master in Larissa was arrested, blamed instantly for the disaster. The media obediently repeated the official story. It was human error. But Maria and Kostas could not accept such a simple answer. Nikos had told them many times about the shameful state of the Greek railways. Trains were old and unreliable. Delays were constant. The signaling and safety systems had been broken for years. Workers had even gone on strike to warn that the railway system was unsafe, but their voices had been ignored. In the days following the crash, whispers spread. Some said the cargo train that collided with Nikos's passenger train was carrying dangerous chemicals. The government denied everything. Mainstream news ignored the rumors. But the families of the victims refused to stay silent. They formed online groups, shared information, and began their own investigation. They collected witness testimonies, dug into public documents, and spoke with railway workers. The more they discovered, the clearer the picture became. The cargo train was indeed carrying flammable materials. These materials were being transported illegally with no proper safety protocols. The signaling system, which could have prevented the collision, had been out of service for years, and everyone in the railway system knew it. The explosion after the crash was not random. It was the direct result of those chemicals catching fire. Many passengers, including Nikos, didn't die from the crash itself. They died from the flames and toxic smoke that followed. The government scrambled to cover up the truth. Crucial audio recordings from the railway stations disappeared. Security camera footage was mysteriously lost. The media aired manipulated videos, trying to push the human error story. But Maria, Kostas, and the other families wouldn't give up. Over the next 2 years, the families became relentless. They formed a victims committee, demanding real answers. They knocked on every journalist's door, especially the few independent media outlets still brave enough to confront the government. They filed lawsuits, even though Greek courts often protected the powerful. The government fought back. Police followed family members to intimidate them. State-friendly judges rejected lawsuits without explanation. Pro-government media called the families conspiracy theorists or politically motivated troublemakers. But the evidence kept growing. Internal documents leaked by whistleblowers showed that the government knew about the hazardous cargo. There were written warnings years before the crash about the broken safety systems. Railway unions had sent multiple letters to ministries begging for upgrades before tragedy struck. But nothing was done. Profits came first. Contracts for modernizing the railway were signed, but the money disappeared. Politicians and businessmen pocketed the funds meant for public safety. Corruption was everywhere. Maria and Kostas knew the truth. It wasn't just the station master. The whole system was guilty. On February 28, 2025, exactly 2 years after the crash, Greece erupted. Tens of thousands flooded the streets of Athens, Thessaloniki, Larissa, and smaller cities across the country. It was the biggest protest since the fall of the dictatorship in 1974. At the very front walked Maria and Kostas, holding a banner painted with trembling hands. Who killed our children? Their grief had turned into a public cry for justice. Protesters chanted their children's names. Black flags flew alongside Greek flags. University students, train workers, pensioners, all stood together. Police fired tear gas into the crowds. They charged at peaceful protesters with batons and shields, but the crowd refused to move. The anger of the people was stronger than fear. That night, Maria stood on a stage in Syntagma Square and spoke. 2 years ago, they killed our children. Today, they will hear their voices. Her words shook the square. The crowd roared in response. The protests became unstoppable. Day after day, the streets filled with people. Every new revelation fed their fury. Investigative journalists published leaked documents proving the government's deep complicity, from ignoring safety warnings to hiding the dangerous cargo. Secret recordings emerged, showing officials laughing off the railway workers' warnings in private meetings. Public confidence collapsed. By March 2025, under crushing pressure, the government resigned. The Prime Minister, the Transport Minister, and several key officials were arrested. For the first time in modern Greek history, top politicians faced real justice for criminal negligence and corruption. When Maria and Kostas returned home after the protests, the house felt even quieter than before. On a small table in the living room, Nikos's photo stood in its usual place. Maria touched the frame gently and whispered, "We didn't forget you, my child. We didn't let them forget you either." The fight had been won, but the pain remained, a hole in their hearts that would never heal. The corruption and greed that stole their son's life had been exposed, but the cost was unbearable. The tragedy of Tempi wasn't just an accident. It was the final consequence of decades of corruption, neglect, and indifference. That night, under the cold sky still haunted by the memory of fire, the people of Greece made a vow. Never again. And this time, they meant it.